guys, today I'm going to be showing you 3 different pumpkin recipes using just one large can of pumpkin. If you're anything like me, when fall rolls around, you see these pumpkin videos popping up, you buy a can of pumpkin and either never use it or use it for one recipe and then you just have a can left and you're like, what do I do with this? The 3 recipes, 1 can of pumpkin thing kind of came on by accident because at the grocery store they actually either didn't give me my other cans of pumpkin or I didn't take them. But you can use 1 large can of pumpkin to complete multiple servings of each of these meals. I'm doing a delicious creamy pumpkin pasta sauce, a roasted Brussels sprouts kind of salad-y thing with a pumpkin dressing, and then a pumpkin vegetable curry. All 3 of these dishes are vegetarian, easily made vegan or easily meatified depending on your personal preferences. I will have timestamps down below for each recipe along with links to my blog with the recipes that I used, and also I will put down below the kind of Pinterest inspiration that I used for these recipes. Thank you so much to anybody who created my meals for my last meal prep videos. I had like 4 or 5 people reach out and I was just blown away that first of all you even watch these videos, but second of all that you recreated it, so thank you so much for doing that. And if you recreate anything that I do, be sure to send it my way. I'm always so curious to see it. But let's go ahead and get into these recipes. For the roasted Brussels sprout salad, I will of course need some Brussels sprouts. I'm using Gala apples, but use whatever apples you like. Dried cranberries and walnuts, which I always get from Bulk Barn. Non-fat plain Greek yogurt, apple cider vinegar, some canned pumpkin, should have started with that. Minced garlic, maple syrup, dried thyme, and then some cinnamon. In a large bowl, I have my Brussels sprouts, which I either cut into halves or quarters, chopped off the bottoms as well. Then I'm adding in 2 tablespoons of oil, a teaspoon of salt. Then I'm adding in my tablespoon of maple syrup, and then less than 1/4 of a teaspoon of cinnamon. I just wanted a little bit. I didn't want it to be too cinnamon heavy. Mix it all up and then adding it to a parchment lined baking sheet super evenly and then putting that in the oven at 425. For the dressing, I'm using 1/3 cup of pureed pure pumpkin, 1/3 cup of the non-fat Greek yogurt, a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar, a teaspoon of minced garlic, along with a tablespoon of maple syrup, my dried thyme, some pepper. Don't be me. Make sure your salt shaker is working, scooping out that extra salt, and then adding in a teaspoon of oil. And then once I mixed it up, I tasted a little bit. I wanted it to be a little bit sweeter, so I added some more maple syrup. Here are my Brussels sprouts out of the oven. They're so good and crispy. Adding in my chopped apples, my cranberries, and walnuts. This would also be amazing with like goat cheese, bacon. I'm trying to keep it a little bit lighter, but I actually ended up thinning out my dressing just a touch with some water, and it really doesn't look cute on top of the salad, but once you mix it all up, it was great. I really need one of those like snazzy squeeze bottles. Onto the pumpkin fettuccine, I'm using canned pumpkin, my fettuccine noodles, I'm using some tofu shirataki noodles, which I'll talk about momentarily, some minced garlic, onion, along with unsweetened soy milk, but you can use regular milk, that's just what I put in my coffee, broccolini, some Parmesan cheese, butter, and fresh sage. So these tofu shirataki noodles are gluten-free, vegan, just 10 calories and 3 carbs in a serving. They're water and tofu based, and I was turned onto these by a YouTube channel called Flav City. They do amazing meal prep things, so I'll link to them down below. But I didn't really love these. If you have any dietary restrictions or are looking to really cut back, they're essentially flavorless, but what really got me was the texture. I recommend you try them. Maybe it won't be as bad for you, and I don't really have texture issues. I'm not picky at all, but I could not do these, so I would recommend maybe a zucchini noodle, or there's some other pasta options out there if you're looking to substitute, but do try this, but it wasn't any good for me. So moving on to the sauce, I'm using a heaping tablespoon of butter and adding in my red onions to cook those down a little bit. If you're snazzy, you can use some shallots. Then I added some minced garlic into the pan. I definitely should have used a bigger pot, but I didn't have one because I was cooking my fettuccine. So I added in my pumpkin and then soy milk, equal parts of each, and then salt and pepper without making that same mistake as I did last time. And then I added in a little bit more pumpkin and a little bit more soy milk just to make more sauce. It wasn't as much as I wanted. And then the Parmesan cheese. In a pan with some butter, I'm cooking broccolini, which is so delicious. If you haven't tried it, I should have added some garlic to the pan as well. It's such a good veg. And then basically the entire reason for this video
video is I just wanted an excuse to fry sage. If you haven't tried fried sage, it is so delicious. Really, really simple, just a minute or two on each side. So for assembly of the dish, just add my pasta and my pumpkin sauce. This was probably my favorite thing that I made. I'll definitely make this again. And then I just added on the broccolini to the side. It's not a necessary side, but it is just a delicious veg I wanted to bring up. And then those were the shirataki noodles, which will not happen again in my house. So for the last dish, we have canned pumpkin, chickpeas, minced garlic again, sriracha, a bag of spinach. You can use frozen if you want. I have some tomatoes here, carrots, which I didn't actually end up using out of laziness, zucchini, mushrooms, some coconut milk. I would have used light, but I couldn't find any near me. An onion, a lime, and then for spices, ginger, curry powder, and turmeric. So in my pan, I'm heating up some oil, and I believe this is called blooming the spices, but basically it makes them taste less raw. So I added in my curry powder, my turmeric, my ginger, and a little bit of cinnamon. Forgot to mention that actually in the ingredients, but just kind of cook those down a little bit. Don't let them burn, but I find it just makes the spices taste much more developed. I'm adding in my chopped onion and then a little bit of water, and add water as you're going. Not a ton, but just a little bit so that you don't have to add any more oil. I'm also using sriracha for my heat, but you could use cayenne, you could use actual like spicy peppers, but that is just kind of what I always have in my kitchen. And for vegetables, again, use whatever you want. I love mushrooms in dishes that don't have meat, and then zucchini. I also added in some tomatoes that I had that were old and frozen in my freezer. Adding in about a cup of pumpkin, and if you don't like pumpkin, obviously you're probably going to skip these dishes, but I don't find any of them are like incredibly pumpkin-y. It just adds something a little bit interesting, and it's really, really delicious. And then I added in my coconut as well, and then just kind of let that all cook down before adding in my chickpeas and a ton of spinach. You can add so much spinach to dishes like this, and it's a great way to get some greens without having to do much work. So I cooked some basmati rice in my rice cooker, and just adding the curry on top. And this was so good, super easy, great weeknight meal, good for meal prep. You can put it in the freezer, it stays well in the fridge. It was a winner.
Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you're curious about storage and meal prep ability, the curry makes an amazing meal prep item. I had, I think, 4 or 5 servings of that out of the entire container. It was so delicious. My boyfriend likes it, and he's like meat's #1 fan. And I just put that in a Tupperware container with the rice on one side, curry on the other, and that kept for like 5 days in the fridge. It was so good. I ate it all week. For the pumpkin pasta, I just kept a container of the pasta sauce in the fridge, and then cooked the pasta as I needed it, and then left some of the broccolini in the fridge as well. And then for the roasted Brussels sprout salad, I kept the roasted Brussels sprouts in the fridge, and then of course I have the walnuts and cranberries and stuff in my cupboard. For me, that one didn't keep as well in the fridge. It's definitely best when served hot and crispy, but you can easily kind of heat up the Brussels sprouts in the oven for like 10 or 15 minutes if you want to reheat these as well. So let me know if you recreate any of these meals. I'm just so incredibly excited when I see that you are liking these videos and even recreating them. I can't believe that I have a hand in what goes down in your kitchen. Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to connect with me, you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Snapchat at Samantha Jane YT, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!